Hey, welcome to The GOAT Show, where we talk about what's got our attention today. See what we did there? I'm Joe, and
I am Josh, and what's got our attention today is Hollywood and movies and television. How come there seems to be a dearth in the amount of quality and new movies that are out there, and yet new television and exciting new television seems to be popping up everywhere we go? To give you an example to start off with, recently went to see a movie, and as always, I was excited to see the previews coming at the theater. There were 5 previews for the movie, but 4 of them were remakes or sequels to existing movies, and none of them looked very exciting and certainly didn't pique my interest. And the other one was a kids movie, which is not my target anyways. And yet new television, I'm sitting at home, even if I'm watching sports, which isn't really a market that advertises for TV, you see advertisements for new TV, existing TV, and they're all very exciting. You know, new shows, existing shows that have been around for a while that are very, very good. And I just wonder, how come the guys in Hollywood doing the movies don't get it the same way as the guys doing TV? What's the problem?
I really like this idea, talking about this, because I think it's definitely something worth exploring, and I think it's something that a lot of people are seeing.
There's certainly a turn to TV.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can see it in the number of big stars that are now on TV and not in movies, right?
Right, absolutely. And you can see the growing money in TV as well,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got people like Netflix in particular, a lot of people talking about like actors and TV people love Netflix because they give them so much freedom,
right,
and they can give them budgets, which will stand up. And I mean,
and I think you also, as an actor, there are some benefits to TV, right? You're in one place, not being away from your family. If you're doing a Netflix or an Amazon type show, you're recording all 12 shows pretty much right at once,
yeah, as
opposed to over a longer season. And the internet guys and the non-cable guys have changed the TV market. Really, Netflix has. Well, I think we'll get to that later as well. But
I think before we get too far into this, like, let's talk a bit about the context that we're looking at. Like, talking about this when we kind of roughed out this idea, we were talking about, the Pirates of the Caribbean. There's a 4th movie there. We've got Transformers 5 coming up. And there's a new Mummy movie.
I'll be honest. Did the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, did it come out yet?
It is. Yeah.
It's that's what I thought. It's out. It did nothing. I mean, The first one was good.
Yeah.
Right? I enjoyed the first Pirates. Second one was plausible to that point. And then it took a pretty steep dive down, I think. But like the Pirates of the Caribbean came out, I didn't even notice it. Like that's how little interest it had. And obviously you and I weren't alone in that because it didn't do very well in the box office. Also, you're saying The Mummy, right? That's a remake.
Yeah, no.
It's a new line, but...
Yeah. The Mummy has kind of a special context to it in terms of what they're looking to do. They're not rebooting just The Mummy. They're trying to reboot monster films because...
Which is I'll give them as a cool idea if they do it right.
Absolutely. You're looking at things like Alien Covenant is another good example. They're doing a Blade Runner sequel. Like, I don't know about you, but I never thought I would live to see a Blade Runner sequel.
I agree. I never saw a need to it.
Yeah, we don't know the Blade Runner sequel, right? We've seen one preview at this point, and
it looks okay.
Absolutely, but we're still at the point where, like, when we saw the first preview for Rogue One, there were scenes in that original preview that didn't actually make the final cut.
Right.
And I think we're still there with Blade Runner. But I think that's a good... Like, let's just take a second to contextualize that. Like, we've got a movie here that we don't have no way of gauging quality from what we've seen so far. So for all we know, this could be a great film. And I'm sure there are tons of fans. I mean, I know we both know people that are really excited to see more Blade Runner because they really like that universe and they want to see more of it. That all kind of takes a bit of a backseat to what we're really kind of trying to focus in on is no matter what, going back to the same well, to try to catch lightning in a bottle again,
correct,
based on nothing but a franchise title,
and not just again like when is the first Blade Runner? I mean, we're talking almost 40 years ago, 35, yeah, so 35 years ago,
35 years ago.
So they're trying to as you said, jump on the coattails of a franchise 35 years old.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't even make a lot of sense from a business standpoint. Like, that means I was a age when that movie came out, I didn't see it in the theaters. I wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't make anything to me. So it's not like you're trying to get on the major demographic by, hey, remember that movie you saw when you were young and you really liked? Here's another version of it, or here's an extension of it. Could you not think of anything? Sci-fi, great. Sci-fi's hot.
Mm-hmm.
But how about a newer topic? Even a little twist on Blade Runner, where if I came in the movie and said, hey, you know what? That was great. It was kind of like Blade Runner, but that was still something new. That would be great. But again, just a rehash.
And alongside these kinds of sequels, we're seeing things like both Baywatch and Chips. I've seen both of these. I'm kind of ashamed to say because I don't.
I saw them both.
I don't.
We saw Chips together.
We saw Chips together, and
it is what it is.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was listening to another podcast, Pop Culture Happy Hour. One of the things they talked about was just the fact that, like, at the very least, making a Hollywood film out of Chips, you expect to see explosions or bike chases or big jumps and stunts and it's Dax Shepard and he's a gearhead. You're going to have a whole bunch of stuff. And you had like one real solid chase scene in that movie. Right. And you look at something like Baywatch, and I agree, Baywatch revels in its cheesiness and what it is and this idea that it's
And I laughed at the Baywatch movie.
Oh, so
there were a lot of funny parts, and they get credit for that. I mean, they took, as you were just saying, they took the ultimate cheesy franchise, even though it is the most popular television show internationally of all time. Mm-hmm. They took it and didn't make it cheesy. They made it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. They played with the idea, and I mean, they have a whole sequence in it where they talk about, what would you do if someone was smuggling diamonds in the bodies of drowning victims that would wash up on shore.
How come she's always walking in slow motion? Oh, you see that too, right? I mean, they made fun of Baywatch in itself, but taking a step back, it's still just another remake.
Absolutely. And as much as I love The Rock, I think he was great in that. He did a great straight man when he was a straight man. Absolutely. And funny when he was funny.
I was very surprised by Zac Efron.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was very they had very good chemistry together.
Yeah,
it was really great.
I was pleasantly surprised by that. But and you and I, neither of us go in for, we're not fans of 3D movies. We're not IMAX people. Right. We just like to go and see it, but we still like to see
the regular movie theater is more than enough for me.
Exactly, and that's fine. Like we enjoy seeing it on the big screen, so we're there and we're going sometimes on opening weekends or opening weeks. We're not always going on the cheap Tuesdays or anything like that. So if I'm going to be spending,
$25 a night, frankly, by the time you're done.
Exactly.
The ticket and a $7 drink and a $12 popcorn, right?
Or heaven forbid you're going as a couple.
As a couple, God forbid, right?
Yeah. So you're really looking at what's your return on investment for that.
Correct.
And I think this steers a little bit into kind of what we're going to talk about with respect to the digital guys, and not just the digital guys. I would say really home entertainment. You've got all these other services that are pushing new and interesting things. Just as we talked about, movies, we're talking about some of the original TV that we're seeing. Things like Legion, Sons of Anarchy, Veep, 24 back in, granted it's not as recent, but that was still a
groundbreaking show and how different it was.
Exactly. True Detective. Say what you will about the second season. I think the second season has arguably the best shootout I have ever seen in film or TV.
Agreed. But the first season was also...
First season, of course, it was a test.
Tour de force?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got The Walking Dead, you've got The Nick, Justified, even Game of Thrones. I mean, HBO started that.
Yeah.
And then really, I think stations got to give them credit. Stations like FX, and then Netflix and Amazon with Transparent, and you look Stranger Things,
Starz and Showcase. Those guys
House of Cards,
came out of nowhere. You look at Penny Dreadful as it really dropped off in the second and third seasons, their viewership. But I mean, the first season was fantastic. I like the whole series. Right. These are you look at someone like Starz. Starz is a really good example of a premium channel that is really was trying very hard to kind of get people on board to treat it like HBO, and now they're not having that trouble because now they're coming up and they're going, there's great stuff out there for us
because they're making high quality content.
Exactly.
I'm happy to either somehow get that channel or get that content or through a subscription to them. I hate to go backwards to that, but when I saw it in the theaters, I made a point of seeing that on a Tuesday afternoon matinee. So I was going to see it in theaters because, as you said, I like The Rock and it looked funny. But I was going to pay the absolute cheapest amount possible to see that movie, knowing that it's not going to blow me away and I don't need to have the big effects. I don't need to pay the money for that.
Yeah.
So, that's a conscious decision made based on the content. And as you just listed off the TVs, listing off movies that we did before, Transformers is coming out, there's a sequel. Cars 3 just came out, I think. The same people who just made Baywatch are making Jumanji again. The Alien sequel just came out. I'm sure there's a new superhero movie coming out at any time soon. Some of those are
Spider-Man Homecoming's right around the corner.
Spider-Man Homecoming. And that one actually looks to be the best, but it's still another Spider-Man movie. And how many is that now? Like 5 in the last 10 years or so. It's a lot. So I'm sitting there going, you know what? I like that movie, but I'm not going to pay to see it in the theater. I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix when I can see it at home in my own comfort because it's not ancient to go where I'm going to see it on a little itty bitty TV. You know, my parents always, I remember growing up, used to say when they didn't want to see a movie, oh, you've got to see the theaters because you get the pageantry and the big screen and the big sound. I have that at home. I have a big TV at home, and I got big sound at home, and I can do it in my underwear, and I'm not going to get kicked out of the theater if I do that. You know, I don't need the big pageantry. I have it. I paid for it at my house, so I could purposely sit there. Yeah. And now the people that are coming to my TV are providing me with content that really, really makes it worthwhile. That's a very tough decision. Or maybe it's not as tough anymore as it used to be, because more often than not, I'm happy to stay at home.
I don't really want to spend too much time beating up on theaters. I think that a lot of that kind of happens. And I'm very pleased with, particularly like the local theater we go to. They just instituted, was probably a couple months ago, less than a year ago now, that, you know, it's reserved seating on every seat in every theater. So, you know, I can buy my tickets ahead. They've got a great app that we use. Like, you
Love
know,
it.
I buy my seats.
And the concessions.
And the concessions ahead of time. I show up. I scan the app. I go right to a shorter line for my concessions. I scan the app. I
feel
get
like a
my
king.
stuff.
It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We go in. We know we've already got the seats where there's a little railing, so we can put our feet up. We've
Agreed.
got it all picked out.
Our experience is very positive.
Exactly. So I don't want to say like that we expect to be given a whole bunch more by theater owners. I don't expect.
I completely agree. I don't think it's the theater at all, and theater pricing.
Yeah.
Is controlled by the distribution people who are the movie companies.
Right, exactly. It's not...
I mean, our discussion today is about content.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to a theater, whatever, that's part of the experience, but you have made that decision.
Yeah.
But if the content was worth it, I'm happy to go to the theater. That's not the problem. And I don't have to eat there. That's always a decision I'm going to make. And there are ways to save money, etc. That's fine, but that thought has happened a lot less when I see the previews.
Yeah.
Flip it to TV. It's number of TV shows, number of times a week that I have a thought of, oh, you know, I wish I had time to watch that show. I could put it on my DVR. I could subscribe to it on one of my subscriptions. And man, I'm just going to have a stack of TV shows that I want to watch, and I know I'm going to like them. Mm-hmm. You know, and I've got people telling me, oh, you should really watch House of Cards. You should really watch. You know, you told me numerous times Justified, and I have no doubt I would like it. You know, but there's just not enough time of the day.
Yeah. I also don't want to not give TV a whole pass. I mean, we are seeing recycling of ideas in TV. We've got things like Justified was a book. You know, Game of Thrones, obviously popular novel series. You've got things like Westworld. You know, HBO's new shiny thing. I just finished watching it a little while ago, and I think Westworld's phenomenal. But it ultimately it's from a movie. It's a spin-off of a movie. It's a rehashing of that idea.
Sure.
And not only that, you know, all the superhero shows that are really hot right now, all the CW stuff, which I watch it, I really enjoy it, but I think also some of it's kind of derivative, and not only just derivative in terms of, oh, we're going to, we've got to have Bizarro Supergirl because it's a Supergirl, and if you're going to do super person, you're going to have a Bizarro super person.
Those are also reaching to a niche market, which they have been for a long time.
Yeah.
The CW superhero shows actually superseded the movies, right? In terms of the movie culture, you know, it started with Smallville a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're delivering on the content.
Absolutely. And the same thing goes, we're not saying that there are no good new movies, because, you know, things like we both really enjoyed The Accountant.
Yep.
And there's an original film that came out, but again, it's not doing the big money. Not only, and I guess maybe this goes back to that old George Carlin quote, you know, garbage in, garbage out. If people continue to go see bad films, if Transformers 5 it does as much money as Transformers 4, as much money as Transformers 3, there will be a Transformers 6, and Michael Bay's
going to keep making... I believe it's already on the books.
Oh, it's already on the books? Well, of course.
Look, the Fast and Furious, 47, which one just came out? I mean, the people in the movie, I've seen interviews with The Rock, who I like. I mean, he made fun of it. They were talking about the whole franchise, and he said something, and I guess this happens in one of them. He's like, yeah, I punched a missile and, like, changed its trajectory. The guy punches a missile. I mean, I know it's supposed to be fun, but there's a level, I think, of like, haha, this is a great, you know, action type movie, and you're gonna sort of whatever, you let that go. But a man can't punch a missile. There's so many things wrong with that, you know, that it's absurd.
Yeah.
But Fast and Furious, whatever it was, 7, 8, I think.
I think it's 8.
It did $1 billion.
Yeah.
And sure, they're going to keep doing them because at the end of the day, the most important thing is the bottom line, is the dollar, is the money.
Yeah.
And I understand that. It is still a business, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
There's still an art to movie making, and entertainment and TV and all of that is still acting. There's still an art behind it. And there's always going to be crappy art. There's always going to be good art. I mean, subjectively. And there's always going to be, especially in this business, there's always going to be people who just want to make money, a movie or a TV show for money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot more of just, I don't really care about the plot as much as I do about making the money. So let's either, cut production values, or let's just, as you said, let's just make these big, funny explosion movies that people seem to go see because they keep making us money. And really, who's to blame for that? Is that the studio's fault, or is it the people going to see it? TV, the budgets, you can accomplish much more with a smaller production budget. And you have, Netflix has their own distribution, right? Amazon, their own distribution. Lots of these companies that they've got built-in distribution. Their costs aren't as much as a movie. In terms of getting it out to the public, you don't have to support theaters. You don't have to support the infrastructure is very, very different. So it's a much better business model in many ways, and that's why they're able to take many more risks with TVs. And the movie guys just seem to be scared, unwilling. I don't know what it is to make a movie. The Accountant is a good example. I don't think anybody expected it to do a great job. It was a very good movie, and it was very unique. It was new. It was a new idea. Even something that's taking a step back with those same people, like Argo, which did win the award, won an Academy Award, it still probably should have done better in the theaters. Or it should have at least should have gained some momentum from that production crew to be able to do more movies like that. To our further question, how come they just can't find that? How come the guy's sitting there saying we want to make money, but can we also do this with new ideas? Why isn't that happening as much in movies? And how come the TV guys are able to go, you know what? I got a budget of $60 million. Let's brainstorm some ideas and see what we can come up with. And you get Stranger Things. Yeah. It's all sci-fi. It's not like that is a 100% authentic new idea. It's a very good show, and it's another twist on that same idea that is new, and that's why it's done so well.
Yeah, I don't know if you are familiar with this. Hollywood Reporter does a series of Roundtable shows. So for those not in the know, it's essentially a show where they bring in nominees for Best Actor, and they bring them in and they have them sit down and do a roundtable, and they'll talk about. They have a Hollywood Reporter staff who kind of chairs this roundtable discussion. So I watched the one about the one for the music nominees. So you had Alicia Keys, Pharrell, Justin Timberlake. That was very good. So that was the first one I watched. Because my girlfriend's really into music, and so we wanted to watch that one. And then the next one we watched was about producers. I never really had a good feel on the context of what's a producer other than a money person. And they aren't always a money person.
Not at all. And there's executive producer, associate producer, there's many different levels.
Exactly.
They all have their roles.
But one of the people who was here, she was a producer who worked with Martin Scorsese. She was talking about how the project she was working on was very dear to Martin. And Martin, like I know the guy, right? Mr. Scorsese.
Marty, yes.
And she's worked with Mr. Scorsese.
You can say Marty. I don't think he's going to, but sure.
She worked with Martin on a number of projects. But this one in particular, this was something that was very dear to him. And as a result, he didn't have his normal budget. I mean, I can't imagine that anyone has Scorsese do anything and doesn't just give him...
Throw whatever he wants at him.
But they had a budget, and he knew that. And she was talking about how it was a very different Marty, because normally when it came to kind of wrangling him, she kind of had to wrangle him, right? You get Marty and he's got infinite resources and he can do whatever he wants. Meanwhile, with this film, she would go to him and she would say, like, look, Marty, we only have this much for reshoots. And he would say, okay, that's what we got for reshoots. This is what we can work with. Right. And he was very accommodating for her. And I think that's really interesting to think about, kind of. There are filmmakers out there. Again, Matt Damon, you look at, he was on that same roundtable. He talked about why he didn't do Manchester by the Sea, why he didn't act in it.
Right.
And a lot of that had to do with scheduling and other things. And really what he decided was he wasn't going to be able to do it for a long time. So I think it was 2 years before his schedule free up for it again. He thought it was phenomenal. And he's a good friend of Casey Affleck. So he kind of brought that all together and was like, I think this is a great way to make this project happen.
Matt Damon was a producer of the movie.
Yeah, he was. So, but this was part of the reason that he produced on that, was because he was able to do that and see this movie get made the kind of the way he wanted to make it. And I think what we're seeing more and more is these kind of unique films. I don't really want to call them independent, but these kind of independent thought films, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
They're making, they're being made by people who are going forward going, I'm never going to get a Transformers 5 budget.
Right.
I'm going to get, I'm going to get an accountant budget, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to do the best I can with that.
Right.
And hopefully some people see it and they really like it.
Yeah.
And if it's really depressing, we'll release it right before Oscar season and we'll hope that we win an Oscar.
I think the economics of movie making it's a huge undertaking. There's no doubt about that. Literally 1,000 people can work on a movie when you take into account, drivers and craft services. It's ridiculous. And I don't think most people don't have a sense of that, because why would you? Right? Yeah. It's why, it's a huge scope, and all we need to see is the people on screen, and that's it. But sometimes I think, as somebody who sits down and watches the credits for movies, just because I kind of feel I owe it to the people who made the movie, you said there's 5 minutes of credits because there's so many people.
Yeah.
Right? That gives you that sense of awe for it. But I think that the economics of that movie making is certainly moved towards now what we're seeing is either opposite ends of the spectrum. Either you get the big blockbusters that have huge budgets that hope to make huge amounts of money, and they have huge marketing budgets too, right? Or you're seeing the absolute opposite, where we're putting in 20 million, 30 million, 10% of what you normally would, 10 to 20% in total, and hoping to get out, even break even, that's fine, and then also maybe some recognition and from the artistic standpoint of awards, etc. And that what used to be that middle ground, those types of movies are transitioning to TV.
Yeah,
the actors are moving there, the producers and the writers are moving there. There's more money there, or there's easier money for them. I can certainly understand being a producer and or actor or even crew member, right? Who you're going to go work on a big budget movie, and there's lots of stress involved with that. And there could be numerous locations to shoot at, and you're away from your family for long periods of time. If you have them, or away from anything for long periods of time, away from your regular life. And it's an easier shoot. It's a smaller shoot, so generally that means less stress. For not almost as much money, that's much more appealing. At the end of the day, I understand that. I still don't get, though, why those big blockbuster guys just can't come up with better ideas. They're just lazy. Is that what it is? They're just lazy, or just slave to $1?
Some of it, I'm thinking, relates a little bit back to the story you want to tell, right? So even if you're looking at, let's say we're dealing with an 8-episode miniseries, really, which is kind of, I think that an 8 1-hour episodes is as small as you're going to get on TV. You're probably not going to get anything shorter than that.
I don't think even TV, you're going to get that on Hulu, Netflix,
yeah,
Amazon,
exactly.
On subscription services. You won't even see it on
no
TV.
One's really going to go shorter than that because there's not enough profitability.
Correct.
So when you think about that, you're telling that's an 8-hour story, and so you're telling 4 movies in that story, and that allows you to explore maybe multiple characters that you couldn't get in a depth that you couldn't get other ways. Maybe even themes that you can't get other ways, right?
Sure.
And so I think some of that's coming back to, and for all those reasons you just mentioned, maybe that's why these types of storytellers are transitioning to TV. In addition, you see all these things. Maybe the people who are exploring these themes or these ideas or these types of stories aren't even going to try and put it in a film anymore because they can't sit down in an office in a pitch meeting and go, it's like blank meets blank. They don't have that. What they have is, we're going to explore, conceptualizations of morality versus artificial intelligence in an in-depth way to look at causality, and we want to look at fate, and we want to look at humanity, and we want to look at all these different aspects, and we want to take this and we want to tie it together because we feel like all these threads weave together, and it's not something that maybe you just can't do concisely in one movie, and maybe that's one of the reasons that they turn to it. I think about something like, and I'm just using Westworld as an example, just because. With Game of Thrones is a great example because George R.R. Martin has, in more than one interview, said back in I think it was the early 90s, he was approached at one point to sell Game of Thrones to opt for an option for a TV series or a movie.
Right.
And he said, if it's not HBO, I won't do it. because the only people who can do this right is HBO.
Right.
And what he meant by the only people who can do this right really is somebody who can do a long form and who can adhere to the level of, I mean, let's face it, sex and violence is woven deeply throughout his books. But you know, to take that narrative and all these different threads that he's woven in together and to try to put that out in a 2-hour movie, or even let's say you've got a Lord of the Rings situation, you know, a trilogy of movies, you wouldn't be able to do that. And you're not going to be able to say to you're not going to have a pitch meeting where you're sitting there with a bunch of people at a movie studio and saying, hey, I've got this really great idea. We've got this guy. He's written 4 tomes of books, and he's got probably 2 or 3 more in the hopper. We're going to take this guy, and we want to make 5 2.5-hour epic fantasy films. Right. That's not going to happen because it's such a huge investment up front. And
take 15 years, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Whereas with something like HBO, and I mean, and let's face it, HBO does cut some corners, right? You don't see the dragons that much. You don't see the dragons because they're expensive. But HBO found a way to make it work and to really rely on the things that make his stories intriguing, which is the characters.
Right.
And so they took that, they leveraged it.
Which is arguably HBO's specialty.
Yep. And at the same time, I will give HBO credit to this. 7 seasons. I think maybe 8. The next 2 are mini seasons they've talked about. But that's it. They've committed to the end of it.
Right.
A lot of people, especially when he hasn't finished writing the books yet, and they've still got a lot of runway and a lot of slack. I mean, they could have made this a 10, 11 season show.
Right.
Easy.
And I'm sure somebody still wants to if they could.
Well, yeah. But I think ultimately, like, I really don't like how this 7 seasons business that goes on most of the time on TV. I feel like that's way too long.
Right.
And I feel like more and more people...
We're talking to you, Lost.
Well, I even look at like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right. Yes.
You know, when Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out, I was target demographic and I loved it. And you go back to it, and there's some weak episodes, there's some strong episodes. It's not a bad show, but it was really long. And I think for the payout in those last couple of seasons, you might have had good episodes, but realistically, you got to look at these stories they're telling. Could we not have made that a 5-season show?
Well, another one we talked about before, Smallville, right? It's a perfect example.
Exactly.
First couple of seasons were great.
Yeah.
And a very cool idea. Mm-hmm. With Superman, before he's Superman, and see him grow up. You and I we're both big fans. We're both comic book and Superman fans. Loved it. And then those middle seasons just... Guys, you're just reaching for the dollar. I mean, come on, it's enough. Like, if I would go back and somebody said, hey, I want to watch Smallville now, I'd tell them, great, watch like seasons 1 to 3, and then just skip to the last one. I think, I agree with everything you just said, and relating back to our initial question about why there are no new ideas, I think the landscape has changed over the last number of years. With, it started really when HBO started to hit their niche, and, The Sopranos, even stuff like Rome and Hung, there were a couple years ago, where, take it that step back further, and you've got a writers, maybe already producer already has the idea and they're pitching. We have an idea for, let's say Rome. It's basically Julius Caesar, right? Mm-hmm. And Augustus Caesar and that story. Maybe it started as a movie, but they wanted more. What about all the characters that are all involved in that story? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, the only options were really movie or network television. Right, so does network TV want to make a TV series out of this? And again, we can't really do that. I don't know if it's going to work out because that's 22 episodes or 20 episodes back then. Even if it's only half a season, it's still 10 to 13 episodes. I don't think that's enough time necessarily. We can't really show the essence of Rome. Look, there was sex and there was blood and there was nasty things going on. We can't show that on cable TV. Okay, so then the option is network TV, sorry. So then the option was maybe cable TV, but cable TV says, this is a great idea. We don't have the budget for it. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Fine. So then you go to movie. Well, even if you make it a 3-hour movie, even if it's a 2-part movie, it's not enough.
No.
It has to be more.
Yeah.
So HBO steps in and says, we can do it. We can deliver that for you. We got the budget. HBO sees the value also in selling back then the DVDs, the residuals they're going to get from it afterwards. And they do it. And it was fantastic.
Yep.
And I won awards for it. Now you've got that middle ground where somebody has an idea and they go, movie, It's too much, not enough for a movie, or too much for a movie. The network television guys are grasping for it, and they go, I don't want to give it to you because, frankly, you guys suck. And then I have to adhere to other regulations, and there's so much red tape involved with that, and then you take over, and you've got Netflix, you've got Hulu, you've got Amazon sitting there going, we'll do it. We'll give you basically whatever you want. No regulations. We can do what you want, or very, very little, and you can meet that middle ground. You want it to be 1 season? Fine. You want 2 seasons? Great. You want it to be 3 episodes, 10 episodes? Wonderful. You only think you're going to hit 5 million viewers instead of 50 million viewers, which of course is absurd numbers, but fine, we don't care about that. Then we'll just give you a smaller budget, but we still want to do it because we just want the content and we're happy to have it. And there's no limit. We don't have to fit you in a time slot. Yep. We don't have to fit you into a release schedule that you have to come out during Christmas or during the March break or whatever. We do whatever you want. We'd like to have it out sometime in Q3. That's it.
Yep.
And they do it. And as the writer or as the producer, this is fantastic. You've got that middle ground, and now so that landmark, that the landscape changing has pushed those people into that market. So that's why I think that's why we have this gap of the big $500 million production, the $50 million productions. Everything else now is just going to your TV. At the end of the day, I don't know if that's a bad thing either.
No, I mean,
as a consumer, it's a pretty glorious time in a way.
Really, what we're getting to more now is. I'm not a fan of how now everybody wants their own personal little Netflix. Everybody wants their own streaming service. So things like, the new Star Trek coming out on the CBS service, or, everybody wants to have their own little niche.
Well, they're trying to grab the piece of the pie, especially the network guys who are grasping at straws. At this point, they're trying to get something back.
Yeah.
I think that's inevitability, but it'll fix itself.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I keep waiting for Ultraviolet to die. Warner Brothers, I'm looking at you because, man, that's an awful service. But I will not purchase a Warner Brothers digital, like a Blu-ray with a digital copy because I gotta use Ultraviolet for it. To me, that's useless. I will wait until it's out on Netflix or some other service I can consume it on.
I think it's fair to say that there are questions, how come new TV is flourishing and new movies are few and far between. It's because we, the consumer, want it that way.
Yeah,
I think that's the answer. Is we've pushed it that way, and maybe it's not a bad thing after all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think time will tell. And I think we'll find in another few years whether or not we see even more of a shift in one direction or another.
At the end of the day, the only people who win, the people who really win, are us. Right?
Yeah.
We still get to watch good stuff. So
Absolutely.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for today. If you want to continue this conversation or talk to us about anything else, any ideas you might have for us, discussion topics, or just want to tell us how you feel, you can reach us anytime at GetOurAttention@TheGOATShow.ca. That's Get Our Attention, all one word, at TheGOATShow.ca. Or you can reach us on Twitter or Instagram. Our handle is Get Our Attention. Thank you for listening. I'm Josh.
I'm Joe, and tune in next time. See what's got our attention that day.